several countries have offered to help Morocco with relief efforts. So far, the Moroccan government has only accepted offers from 4 nations. They are Qatar, Spain, the United Arab Emirates and the UK, and they've all begun deliveries of aid. Let's go live to Natacha Butler now, who's in Paris, France for us. France, Natacha, has also offered to help.
That's right. The French President Emmanuel Macron saying he's devastated by what has happened in Morocco, says that rescue teams are on standby. Same message from the French Foreign Ministry. They say they are just waiting for the green light from Morocco, but that has yet to come. No word from Morocco on whether or not they're going to accept this aid from France. Now, French officials here are trying to downplay that. They are saying that Morocco is obviously overwhelmed. It is looking at its logistics, and for now, perhaps it has no need for this help from France. But others are saying this is probably likely due to the fact that relations between Morocco and France have been particularly strained in recent years over a number of issues. France, for example, has refused to recognise the territory of the Western Sahara as Moroccan. It has tightened visa rules for some Moroccans, and Rabat unhappy about Paris's rapprochement, growing closeness to Algeria. So those are some of the reasons for tensions over the past few years, also a strained relationship between the Moroccan king and President Emmanuel Macron. And that is why some believe that this offer of aid from France has yet to be accepted.
And there's a big Moroccan community in France, a huge diaspora there, and they've been deeply affected by this crisis back home. How are they responding?
A huge Moroccan community because of the historic ties between France and Morocco. About 1,600,000 Moroccans, some of them dual nationals, of course, French and Moroccan, and they have been deeply affected, as you say. They are upset. They are wondering whether or not their family and their friends are okay. People are still unable to contact many relatives and friends. We know that some local charities here and mosques have been mobilising to try and get aid to Morocco. And there's also a sense of anger over the fact that Rabat has not accepted this offer of crucial aid from France, because every minute, of course, counts on the ground there. And people say, look, when it comes to saving lives, surely the politics have to be put aside.
Natacha, thank you for that. Natacha Butler live there in Paris. Well, let's speak to Mr. Abdelmalek Alaoui about this. He's president of the Moroccan Institute for Strategic Intelligence, and he's joining us from the capital, Rabat. Thank you very much, Mr. Alaoui, for being with us on Al Jazeera. So far, as we've said, Morocco has only officially accepted aid from 4 countries, Spain, the UK, the UAE and Qatar. Can you help us understand first how the authorities decide which foreign aid to accept, based on what?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. This question of how to channel international aid is at the center of the conversation since day one, and since the moment that Morocco had this catastrophe. But we have a curve of experience in Morocco that if you get too much aid at the same time, unorganized, you will have bottlenecks all over the place, and this will be very complicated to handle. And the second thing is that we've seen a lot of questions about geopolitics and relationships, but Morocco clarified very clearly yesterday night through a press release from the Minister of Interior that all international aid is welcome in Morocco, but it has to be organized and it has to come in a proper way so you don't create these bottlenecks. And your reporter on the ground stated how complicated and difficult it is, because you only have one road, you have a very long column now of logistics trying to get there. You want to make sure that this aid is not adding a problem to a problem. But of course, this is a terrible catastrophe. You have a lot of frustration, you have a lot of anger, you have a lot of self-proclaimed specialists that are trying to put their say in what's happening in Morocco, and everybody improvise himself as logistician or specialist in humanitarian aid.
Right.
This complicates the issue right now. But when you said that 4 countries were accepted, Spain is the closest one to Morocco. It's only 12 miles north of Morocco, so it was easier to get
But
Spain
why the UK
rescuers.
and not France, for example?
Well, it depends on the shopping list of the Moroccan government and what they want to bring in at this moment. There is very specific expertise depending on countries. And in Morocco, this is a region with mountains, and there are specific needs. When it comes to France, it's a controversy that is mainly a French controversy. Everybody's speaking about it. But in Morocco, nobody's talking about this because people are very much focused on rescuing the people on the ground and trying to overcome this issue of logistics.
Right.
But it's normal.
But do you
It's
understand, though, the frustration of Moroccans who live in France who think that the French government could be helping right now, the large Moroccan community that lives in France?
Well, actually, I understand all frustrations, and I understand frustrations from Moroccans living abroad. This is totally normal when you have an event of this magnitude, because people want to act and are sometimes desperate to find ways to act. But I can tell you, there are no geopolitics. Morocco is pragmatic in its way that it deals with other countries. But I have to remind you of something. Superpowers don't have convictions. They have agendas and they have vested interests. Morocco is working to promote its best and vital interests in order to organize the rescue operations right now.
Right. You know, when you look at the humanitarian response to the earthquake in Turkey earlier this year, for example, it was really massive. Various countries and international organizations responded. 105 countries, 16 international organizations sent in humanitarian aid. 11 countries, including Israel, including Greece, provided teams with search and rescue dogs to find victims under the rubble there. Of course, it is too early to compare the scale of the disasters, the two disasters. But it's difficult to comprehend, perhaps, why Morocco is not accepting more international help, which could be coordinated by the United Nations, as it was the case in Turkey.
I think the wording is very important. I do understand that TV channels need to do audience and they want to compare the situation in Turkey with the situation in Morocco. In Turkey, it was in urban area. It was a disaster that was terrible, but it was hurting an urban area and it needed some kind of response. In Morocco, it's in a rural and mountainous area. So the situation is very, very, very different in the way you will organize international aid and how you will channel it. And of course, as I told you, a lot of people are speaking about how Morocco can do things better and can accept. But I have to say something about wording. Morocco did not refuse international aid. It is trying to channel it in the best way to serve the best interests of the population, and it's not refusing. These are words that came out in the media that are completely wrong. And you can ask any specialist of this kind of catastrophe. The first 48 hours are indeed very crucial to try to rescue lives. And at the same time, it's the only time where you can have the exact shopping list of what you need in terms of international aid. So, of course, there are controversies. It always happens when you have catastrophes like this. But you cannot compare the situation of Morocco with the situation of Turkey. These are two different things.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to us. Mr. Abdel Malik Alawi, President of the Moroccan Institute for Strategic Intelligence. And we're just getting new numbers from the Interior Ministry in Morocco, which says now 2,497 people have been killed in this earthquake in Morocco, the death toll rising there. Let's speak now to David Whitwick, who's chief executive of the UK Med, which is a medical charity that has just arrived in Morocco, is joining us from London. Thank you very much for speaking to us. So your team has just arrived in Morocco. What is their initial assessment of the situation? What are they going to be focusing on?
Yeah, so the most important thing for the team at the moment is to liaise as closely as possible with the Moroccan government and local authorities and to get up to the most affected area in order to have an idea of the extent and the scale of the needs. So I know that they've met already with representatives of the Moroccan government, and we already had someone there a couple of days ago working with the British Embassy as well.
On the ground, when you arrive on the ground, when the teams arrive, they have to make an assessment of the facilities on the ground and what there is, of course. Do the facilities there and expertise, is there expertise and the equipment needed to deal with the types of injuries that were sustained by victims of this earthquake?
Yeah, so all of the earthquakes break down in terms of scale and complexity. And I think the challenge with this one is complexity. So it's the fact that the area that is worst affected is remote, is rural. The infrastructure probably wasn't terribly good prior to the earthquake. So I don't know that there's necessarily a shortage of supplies and equipment in the whole of Morocco, but getting it where it's most needed in the right time is the real challenge.
Yeah. David, I don't know if you heard our previous guest who was saying that we cannot compare this earthquake in Morocco with that in Turkey yet, because, of course, we don't know the scale of it. And in Turkey, it was an urban area. In Morocco, you're dealing with more mountainous areas. I know your teams responded to the earthquakes in Turkey. In terms of the response, how is it organized in this situation? Foreign teams like yours, when they come into the country, how do you work in tandem with local authorities?
So it's quite an established structure, and the way things are coordinated is through a UN team, so United Nations, and the different United Nations agencies that work with the rest of us. So we work with WHO, World Health Organization. And what happens, whether the emergencies are large or small, it's the same process. When we enter the country, we contact the local authorities and we talk to the United Nations. The United Nations then coordinate the international effort with and on behalf of the local government.
Yeah, we're looking at the latest pictures that we're getting from some of the areas affected, David, and emergency crews there, focusing, of course, their efforts on these remote mountainous villages. Do you think there's hope of finding more people alive nearly 72 hours after this earthquake struck?
Well, in Turkey, the search and rescue were managing to pull people out of the rubble over a week after, but it was colder, which means people probably had a better chance of survival. But I mean, it's difficult for me to comment on the specific circumstances in individual villages in Morocco at this point. But certainly people have survived for far longer than a couple of days.
Thank you very much, David, for talking to us. Thank you for your time. David Whitwick from the UK medical charity that has just arrived in Morocco to help with the search and rescue efforts there. Thank you for your time.